I've let this firm up a little bit, so now I am ready to start creating my form using darts. After you plan out your form, then you need to decide how you're going to create that form using darts. I am going to have my shape go in at the top, and then the widest part will be here, and then I want it to go in at the bottom. That means that my darts at the top need to be wider and a little bit longer, and my darts at the bottom are going to be shorter. It's helpful to draw the dart on your clay. Then I'm going to cut this out using my sculpture tool. Notice how the end of the dart will create this point. If I wanted this to actually be longer, then I know I need to bring the point of my dart farther down. So I'm actually going to open this up a little bit more. This will work well for my design. You can use this as a pattern. Since I altered the shape by making a larger one, I can't necessarily use this exactly as my pattern. I could also use a template to know exactly how large I need to cut my triangles for my other darts. I like to make 3 evenly spaced darts to get this pretty symmetrical. So I marked where I'm going to place the middle of my other darts. I'm going to place this on and then trace around with my wood tool. Again, keep your tools clean. This one got dirty. Before I slip and score these, I just want to make sure that this is the form that I want. This is looking good. So next I'm going to slip and score my darts. When you're ready to attach your darts, you don't want to pinch. You want to be very careful that you are just pressing the seams together, but not thinning out the wall of your slab. I'm going to use firm pressure, but also I'm going to be very gentle. I want to make sure that my shape is circular. I don't want my piece to be a triangular shape. So I'm going to press to make sure this stays a circle. If you can find something that's cylindrical, but small enough, you could try to use that to form the top around. Next, I'm going to smooth and seal my seams. You can do this using the pad of your finger. Again, my finger is clean. I don't want to have dried clay on my finger. You could also do this using a wood tool. It's helpful to support the inside of your wall while you are smoothing out your seam. I had a little bit too much slip on that, so I just wiped it off and then wiped it on a paper towel. You don't want your slip oozing out of your seam. If you feel like you need to reinforce your seams, you can take a piece of clay. I just usually take this from my dart and roll a tiny coil, score over the seam, and place this clay. Sometimes if it's drier, you can score it. Since this is pretty soft, I don't really need to score it. Press this coil, again, firmly but gently, over this seam. I like to take a wood tool and compress that area. Or use a card. Smooth and seal the inside of your seams as well. Again, support with your hand on the outside and use your finger or a wood tool. I'm going to go back and level this out later, but for now I'm going to leave it and turn this over and cut out my darts for the base. I want this to go in more dramatically, so I'm going to cut out wider and shorter darts. You could do this either directly under the dart that you cut. I'm going to offset my darts so that they're in between where I put my darts for the top. I generally don't like to cut a dart from my seam, but I'm going to have that one there. You can always make your dart bigger, but you don't necessarily want to make it too big and then have to patch up your clay later. By having 3 of these, I'm going to have a fairly small base, but I do like how this form creates that dramatic angle. Since I'm happy with my first dart, I'm going to use this as a template. Before I score, I want to make sure that I'm happy with this form. Again, I'm going to make this circular on the bottom, but I do like the overall form. Again, when you're putting together your darts, make sure that you are being firm, but you're not pinching the wall to alter the width. Wipe away any excess slip so you don't have it oozing out of the seam, which creates some cracking or a lot of kind of like extra cleanup later. Next, I'm going to roll out my clay for my base. Whenever you're cutting from slabs, try to get the most out of your slab. So I don't necessarily need to put my piece right in the middle so that I can save this slab for something else. I'm going to put my piece toward the edge so I can use my slab for other things. Place your cylinder on top of your slab and then trace around the base with a wood tool. Next, you can use your wood tool to cut this out. You could also use a fettling knife or your sculpture tool. Again, I'm going to cut perpendicularly. If you want a bevel, you could go ahead and try this now, or you can always bevel on your piece after you get it attached. I'm noticing that my base isn't perfectly circular. You could cut a perfect circle to know that's what you need to form this into. If I do have more of an organic shape, sometimes it's helpful to make a little mark to connect your piece and your clay so you know where they line up. I can also see a little indentation of where I had my piece kind of pressed onto this slab, so I know exactly where I need to score. Don't score inside your slab. It can be really tricky to reach inside and clean this up later after we get it attached, so keep it clean before you even attach it. Also, before you attach, you want to make sure that the inside base is nice and smooth. I made sure that my seams were really smooth in here before I am going to even cut out my slab. Remember to work in the right stage. If your clay is so soft that it's not standing up by itself, you need to let it firm up. My clay is just malleable to the touch, but it's able to hold its form. Remember, when you're applying slip, you just need a little bit. You can also do this with a paintbrush. Seal the base by pressing the slab to your cylinder. Then take your wood tool and smooth this upward. My base is going in where I made my darts. I want my design to be like that. If you wanted your base perfectly flat, make sure that you cut along the edge to get your base really flat. On the inside, I'm going to take the tip of my wood tool and just go around the inside of the seam. Make sure you're not pressing down. I don't want a big indentation or line where I'm using my wood tool to smooth my base into my wall. I just want to kind of seal it and smooth it together. I'm going to come back when this is more leather hard and set up to finesse that a little bit. You can also take your card and kind of smooth out the base into the wall a little bit more. This is pretty soft. Make sure when you put your mug down that your board is clean. You don't want to get any clay scraps on the base. Remember, when you're handling your piece, make sure your fingers are clean and you don't want to get any kind of indentions or scraps onto your piece. I'm going to come back to this once it's firmed up and finesse it a little bit more. My clay is pretty soft, so I don't need to add water, but I am going to make sure I cover this up really well with my plastic bag. You can just make sure your bag is on top of your board like this, or you could also tuck your piece in a bag. Just make sure that you're always being careful and putting your piece in a safe place.